The moment I heard Dr. Marcus Weld whisper, "Is his wife still in the waiting room?" While I was supposed to be unconscious, I knew my marriage was over. What I didn't know was that my life was about to be. My name is Owen Grant, and I'm a 38-year-old software consultant who thought the worst thing about getting a vasectomy would be the ice packs. I was wrong. Dead wrong, as it turned out. "Yes, doctor," Nurse Clara replied in that hushed tone medical professionals use when they think patients can't hear them. "Good. After we finish, give her this envelope. Don't let him see it." The anesthesia was wearing off faster than it should have, but I kept my breathing steady and my eyes closed. Years of dealing with difficult clients had taught me the value of listening when people think you're not paying attention. In this case, it might save my life. Elena, my wife of 6 years, had been the one to suggest Dr. Weld for the procedure. "He's a family friend," she'd said with that smile that used to make my heart skip. "Marcus will take good care of you." The way she said his name should have been my first clue. Too familiar, too intimate. I felt something sharp and foreign being inserted during what should have been a routine procedure. Not just the surgical instruments, something else. Something that didn't belong. "All done," Dr. Weld announced cheerfully, his voice returning to its professional tone. "He'll be groggy for another hour." Perfect timing. Perfect timing for what? I wondered, fighting to keep still as they wheeled me to recovery. Through barely opened eyes, I watched Nurse Clara slip Elena a manila envelope in the waiting room. My wife's face lit up with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold satisfaction mixed with something that looked disturbingly like greed. Elena drove me home in unusual silence, her manicured fingers drumming against the steering wheel. She'd been distant for months, claiming stress from her job as a PR manager for various charity organizations. Late nights, weekend events, hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. "How are you feeling, honey?" she asked, but her eyes never left the road. "Like I've been cut open," I said, testing the waters. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Well, you have been. Dr. Weld said you should take it easy for a few days. I'll be working late this week anyway." Of course she would be. That night, while Elena showered, I found the envelope she'd hidden in her purse. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting maybe love letters or financial documents. What I found was worse. Medical consent forms I'd never signed, post-operative care instructions that mentioned foreign object insertion for tracking purposes, and a payment receipt for $50,000 paid to Dr. Marcus Weld for specialized surgical services. I checked my incision site carefully. There was definitely something hard under the skin, something that hadn't been there before, something that felt metallic and wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Derek. "How'd the snip go? You shooting blanks now?" I stared at his message, realizing I might not be shooting anything much longer if I didn't figure out what Elena and Dr. Weld had really done to me. The rain started falling harder against our bedroom window as Elena emerged from the bathroom, toweling her hair. She looked beautiful as always. Long dark hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that stopped traffic. But now I saw something else in her face. Something predatory. "You should get some sleep," she said, not meeting my eyes. "You need your rest." I pretended to drift off, but my mind was racing. The tracking device, the money, the secrecy, it all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Elena wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning something much worse. As she slipped out of bed around midnight, claiming she needed water, I heard her whisper into her phone downstairs, "It's done. The package is delivered. We just need to wait for the right moment." Package. Like I was cargo to be shipped somewhere, or disposed of. I lay there in the dark, feeling the foreign object pulse under my skin like a technological tumor, and realized that my loving wife and her surgeon friend had just turned me into a walking target. The only question was whether they planned to track me or kill me. Maybe both. The next morning, Elena left early for another charity meeting, kissing my forehead with lips that felt like ice. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then disabled the security system she'd insisted we install 6 months ago. "For our safety," she'd said. Now I wondered who she'd really been trying to keep safe. I drove through the storm to St. Mary's Hospital across town, where I knew Dr. Phelps worked. He'd been my college roommate before medical school, and I trusted him more than any surgeon who took 50 grand to implant mystery devices in unsuspecting patients. Owen, Dr. Phelps looked surprised to see me limping into his office. What brings you here? And why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Because I think I'm about to become one, I said, then explained everything. The x-ray results made his face go pale. Jesus, Owen, this wasn't an accident. Someone wanted you tracked, or worse. This device has both GPS capability and what looks like a small reservoir for liquid injection. Injection of what? I don't know, but we need to get it out. Now. The removal surgery took an hour. Dr. Phelps worked carefully, his face grim as he extracted the device with surgical precision. It was smaller than I'd expected, about the size of a pill, but with tiny electronic components visible through its translucent casing. This is military-grade technology, he said, holding it up to the light. GPS tracking, remote activation, and this chamber here could hold enough poison to kill a horse. Owen, you need to go to the police. Or better yet, someone who doesn't wear a white coat and ask too many questions about jurisdiction. I checked into a motel under a fake name, paying cash and parking my car 3 blocks away. The device sat on the nightstand like an accusation, its electronic guts exposed, but still somehow menacing. Derek answered on the first ring. Dude, your wife's Instagram just went private, and you've got a tracking chip in your nuts. What's next, aliens? Worse. I think she's trying to kill me. Okay, that's definitely worse than aliens. You need professional help. I know a guy, Rico Saldana, ex-cop turned private investigator. He specializes in cases where people are trying to screw you over, literally and figuratively. Rico's office was exactly what you'd expect from a PI who advertised on bus benches. Cluttered, coffee-stained, and smelling faintly of cigarettes and disappointment. But his eyes were sharp, and he listened to my story without interrupting. You look like the kind of guy who's about to make my job interesting, he said when I finished. Let me guess. Your wife has been distant, working late, and suddenly very concerned about your medical care. How did you know? Because I've seen this playbook before. Beautiful wife, older husband with money, mysterious medical procedures. Usually ends with the husband having an accident and the wife consoling herself with the insurance money and a new boyfriend. He leaned back in his chair, studying the device I'd placed on his desk. This is high-end stuff. Your wife isn't working alone, and she's not working cheap. Tell me about Dr. Weld. I told him everything I could remember. Elena's familiarity with him, the way she'd insisted on using his services, the envelope exchange. Rico took notes, occasionally grunting or raising an eyebrow. Here's what we're going to do, he said finally. I'm going to put surveillance on both of them, and you're going to stay dead for a while. As far as they know, that device is still tracking you. Let them think they're in control while we figure out exactly what they're planning. And then? Rico smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then we turn the tables. You want revenge? I'll help you get it. But we do this smart, legal, and devastating. By the time we're done, they'll wish they'd never heard your name. As I left his office, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Elena and Dr. Weld had made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated the quiet software consultant they were trying to eliminate. That was going to cost them everything. Rico's surveillance photos arrived 3 days later, and they painted a picture that made my stomach turn. Elena and Dr. Weld weren't just having an affair. They were living a completely separate life together. The images showed them at restaurants I'd never been to, holding hands like teenagers, sharing intimate moments that should have been ours. But it was the documents Rico had uncovered that really knocked the wind out of me. Your wife's name isn't Elena Grant, Rico said, spreading the papers across his desk like a poker hand. It's Angela Morrison, and she's been married to Marcus Weld for 8 years. Your marriage? It's bigamy, completely illegal. I stared at the marriage certificate dated 2 years before I'd even met Elena. But how is that possible? We have a marriage license, joint bank accounts, all fake. She's been using forged documents and a stolen identity. The real Elena Grant died in a car accident in Oregon 5 years ago. Your wife stole her life and used it to steal yours. The room spun around me. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of what I thought was love, all built on lies. Why? Why go through all this trouble? Rico pulled out another document, my mother's will. Because Ruth Grant is worth $12 million dollars and you're her only heir. Angela and Marcus have been playing a very long con, waiting for the right moment to eliminate you and claim everything. But my mother's still alive. Not for long, according to her medical records. Dr. Weld has been her consulting physician for the past year. Funny how her condition has been getting steadily worse since he started treating her. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. Elena's sudden interest in visiting my mother, her encouragement for me to get the vasectomy, the tracking device that could inject poison. They weren't just planning to kill me. They were planning to kill us both and inherit everything. We need to move fast, Rico said. I've got more surveillance scheduled for tonight. Angela thinks you're at that motel, recovering from surgery. She's planning something big. That evening, I followed Rico to an upscale restaurant where Elena, Angela, was meeting with a woman I'd never seen before. Through Rico's telephoto lens, I watched my wife laugh and gesture animatedly, looking happier than I'd seen her in years. That's her real sister, Michelle Morrison, Rico whispered. She's been helping with the identity theft and money laundering. This whole thing is a family business. We listened through Rico's surveillance equipment as the two women discussed their plans with casual cruelty that made my blood run cold. Owen's so trusting, Angela said, sipping her wine. He actually believed I loved him. It was almost too easy. And the mother? Marcus is handling that. A little adjustment to her medication and she'll have a heart attack within the week. Then we just need to activate Owen's device, and both problems are solved. Michelle laughed. $12 million for 6 years of pretending to love a boring software guy. Not bad work if you can get it. The hardest part was the sex, Angela said, and they both burst into giggles. God, he's so vanilla. At least it'll be over soon. I'd heard enough. Rico had to physically restrain me from storming into the restaurant and confronting them both. Not yet, he hissed. We need more evidence, and we need a plan. Revenge is a dish best served with a side of criminal charges. Back at his office, Rico laid out our strategy. We're going to give them exactly what they want, your death. But we're going to do it on our terms, with the police watching and with enough evidence to put them both away for life. What about my mother? Already handled. I've got a friend at the hospital, keeping an eye on her medications. Dr. Weld won't be able to hurt her. As I drove back to the motel, I felt a cold fury settling in my chest. Angela Morrison had stolen 6 years of my life, planned to murder me and my mother, and laughed about it over expensive wine. She wanted Owen Grant dead? She was about to get her wish, just not the way she expected. I started with Dr. Weld's car. At 3 in the morning, I slipped into the hospital parking garage, where he kept his precious BMW and got creative. Sugar in the gas tank, slashed tires, and a note tucked under his windshield wiper. You cut the wrong guy. Next time, buy me dinner first. But vandalism was just the appetizer. The main course required more finesse. Rico had discovered that Dr. Weld was already under investigation by the medical board for suspicious prescribing practices. All we needed was to give them a little push in the right direction. I waited for him outside the hospital the next evening, my heart pounding with nervous energy and righteous anger. When he emerged from the building, I stepped out of the shadows. Hello, Marcus. He spun around, his face going pale in the parking lot lights. Owen, what are you doing here? Elena said you were recovering from surgery. I was. Interesting surgery, by the way. Very creative use of foreign objects. His hand moved instinctively toward his pocket, probably reaching for his phone to call Angela. I stepped closer. I wouldn't do that if I were you. See, I know everything. About the tracking device, about the poison, about your real wife, Angela Morrison. Did you really think I was stupid enough not to figure it out? I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Sure you don't. That's why you're sweating like a guilty man. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You're going to confess everything to the police, or I'm going to make your life very unpleasant. He tried to bluff. You can't prove anything. I pulled out my phone and played the recording Rico had made at the restaurant. Angela's voice filled the parking garage. Marcus is handling that. A little adjustment to her medication and she'll have a heart attack within the week. Dr. Weld's face crumpled. Owen, please, we can work something out. I can pay you. With what? The 50,000 you charged to try to kill me? I stepped closer, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You want to know something funny, Marcus? I trusted you. I actually shook your hand and thanked you for taking care of me. Before he could react, I slapped him across the face. Not hard enough to cause real damage, but hard enough to make a point. That's for violating your Hippocratic oath. The next one will be harder. He stumbled backward, holding his cheek. You're crazy. No, I'm angry. There's a difference. Crazy would be activating that poison device while it was still inside me. Angry is making sure you pay for what you've done. I left him there in the parking garage and drove straight to my mother's house. It was time for the next phase of the plan. Ruth Grant might be 78 years old, but her mind was still sharp as a tack. When I explained what Angela and Dr. Weld had been planning, her face hardened into an expression I remembered from my childhood, the look she got when someone tried to take advantage of her family. That little bitch, she said, and I was shocked to hear her swear. I knew there was something off about her. No woman that pretty marries a computer nerd unless she wants something. Thanks for the confidence boost, Mom. You know what I mean, so what's the plan? The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Angela thought she was inheriting $12 million when my mother died. What she didn't know was that Ruth had already changed her will, leaving everything to charity if anything suspicious happened to either of us. But first, my mother said with a smile that would have made a shark nervous, let's have some fun with her. Angela arrived that evening for one of her regular check-ins, bringing flowers and wearing her most concerned expression. I hid in the kitchen, listening as she played the devoted daughter-in-law. How are you feeling, Ruth? You look tired. I'm feeling much better, actually. Owen told me the most interesting story today. There was a pause. Oh, what kind of story? About a woman named Angela Morrison who's been pretending to be my daughter-in-law while planning to murder my son and steal his inheritance. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, Angela's voice, cold and calculating. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't, dear. Just like you don't know about the tracking device, or the poison, or your real husband, Dr. Marcus Weld. I heard footsteps moving quickly across the living room. Then my mother's voice, sharp and commanding. Sit down, Angela. We're not finished talking. You can't prove anything, you old bat. Wrong thing to say. I heard the sharp crack of my mother's hand across Angela's face, followed by my mother's voice, deadly quiet. Get out of my house. If I ever see you again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Owen! I stepped out of the kitchen as Angela stumbled toward the door, her perfect composure finally cracking. She looked at me with pure hatred. You think you're so smart, she snarled. But this isn't over. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I do, I said calmly. I'm dealing with a two-bit con artist who got in over her head. The police are already investigating Marcus, and it won't be long before they come for you too. She slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. My mother looked at me with approval. That felt good, she said. Now what? Now we wait for her to make a mistake. We didn't have to wait long. Angela's mistake came in the form of desperation. With Dr. Weld under investigation and their plan falling apart, she decided to take a more direct approach. Rico called me at 6 in the morning. Your wife just hired a guy named Victor Reeves to handle her Owen problem. He's got a record for assault and battery, and he's not known for his subtlety. Where is she now? Holed up in a motel with Marcus. They're panicking, making phone calls to lawyers, and trying to figure out how much you know. The good news is, they're sloppy when they're scared. The bad news is they're dangerous when they're cornered. I met Rico at his office, where he'd spread out surveillance photos and criminal background checks like a war room briefing. Victor's going to come for you soon, he said, and probably today. Angela's running out of money and options. She can't access any of your joint accounts because the bank froze them when I showed them the bigamy evidence. So what do? We set a trap? Let Victor find you, but on our terms, with backup ready. The plan was to meet Victor at the downtown parking garage where I supposedly went for my daily walks. Rico would be watching from the upper level with a camera and a direct line to the police. I didn't have to wait long. Victor Reeves looked exactly like Central Casting would order for a hired thug. 6 feet tall, built like a linebacker, with arms covered in prison tattoos and eyes that had seen too much violence. "You Owen Grant?" he asked, stepping out from behind a concrete pillar. "Depends who's asking. Your wife wants to have a conversation with you." "Which wife? The fake one or the one who's married to her boyfriend?" His face twisted with confusion. "What? Never mind, let me guess. Angela sent you to beat me up, maybe kill me, make it look like a mugging?" Victor's hand moved to his jacket pocket. "Lady said you were a smart mouth. Said you needed to learn some respect. The lady is a lying, murdering con artist who's about to spend the rest of her life in prison. You really want to go down with her?" "I don't care about her problems. I care about getting paid." He pulled out a knife, a big, ugly thing that looked like it had seen use before. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Here's the thing, Victor," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're not being paid enough to die for her. And that's what's going to happen if you don't walk away right now." "You threatening me?" "No, I'm trying to save your life. See, my friend up there has a rifle pointed at your head, and the police are about 2 minutes away." Victor looked up instinctively, and I used the distraction to hit the panic button on my car alarm. The shrieking sound echoed through the parking garage like a banshee wail. "You son of a bitch!" Victor lunged at me with the knife. I dodged, pulled out the pepper spray Rico had given me, and hit him full in the face. He went down screaming, clutching his eyes and rolling around on the concrete. Police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. I stood over Victor, who was still writhing in agony from the pepper spray. "You want some advice, Victor? Next time someone offers you money to commit murder, ask for payment up front. Angela Morrison doesn't have the cash to cover your bail." The police arrived and arrested Victor for assault with a deadly weapon. In his pocket, they found a note in Angela's handwriting with my name and the parking garage location. Rico clapped me on the shoulder as we watched the ambulance take Victor away. "One down, 2 to go. What's next?" "Next we go public. It's time to destroy what's left of their reputations before we destroy their freedom." That evening, I walked into Murphy's Tavern, the local bar where Angela and I used to go for drinks when we were pretending to be happily married. Word travels fast in a small community, and I knew the story of my fake marriage and attempted murder would be irresistible gossip. I didn't have to wait long. Angela walked in around 8 o'clock, probably looking for me or trying to establish an alibi. She froze when she saw me sitting at the bar, but then put on her best innocent act. "Owen, thank God you're safe. I heard about what happened in the parking garage. Are you okay?" The entire bar went quiet, everyone straining to hear what would happen next. I stood up slowly, making sure my voice would carry to every corner of the room. "I'm fine, Angela. Or should I call you by your real name? Angela Morrison, wife of Dr. Marcus Weld, con artist, identity thief, and attempted murderer." Her face went white. "Owen, what are you talking about? You're scaring me." "Am I? The way you scared me when you had your husband implant a poison device in my body? The way you scared my mother when you planned to kill her for her inheritance?" The bar erupted in whispers and gasps. Angela looked around desperately, realizing that her carefully constructed facade was crumbling in front of an audience. "You're having some kind of breakdown," she said, trying to salvage the situation. "The surgery must have affected your mind?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording of her restaurant conversation with her sister. Her own voice filled the bar. "Owen's so trusting. He actually believed I loved him. It was almost too easy." The silence that followed was deafening. Then someone in the back called out, "Jesus, lady, what kind of monster are you?" Angela's composure finally shattered completely. "You bastard!" she screamed, lunging at me with her fingernails extended like claws. The bartender, a former Marine named Tommy, caught her by the arms and held her back. "I think you need to leave, lady. You're not welcome here anymore." Angela looked around the bar at faces full of disgust and contempt. These people had known her for 6 years, had accepted her as Owen Grant's wife, had included her in their community. Now they saw her for what she really was. "This isn't over," she hissed at me as Tommy escorted her toward the door. "Yes, it is," I called after her. "It's been over since the moment you decided to steal my life. You just didn't know it yet." She fled into the night, and the bar exploded in conversation. I bought a round for the house and told them the whole story. The fake marriage, the tracking device, the murder plot, everything. By morning, it would be all over town. By afternoon, it would be in the newspapers. Angela Morrison's carefully constructed world was collapsing, and there was nowhere left for her to hide. Rico was right. Revenge was a dish best served with a side of public humiliation. The final confrontation came during a thunderstorm that seemed almost too dramatic to be real. Lightning split the sky as I sat in my car outside Dr. Weld's mansion, watching the windows glow with warm light while rain hammered against my windshield. Rico's voice crackled through the radio. They're both inside. Angela arrived an hour ago, and they've been arguing ever since. Sounds like they're turning on each other. Good. Let them destroy each other before we finish the job. I'd sent them both a message earlier that day, claiming I was ready to negotiate a settlement. Meet me at Marcus's house at midnight. Come alone and we can work something out. I knew they wouldn't be able to resist the chance to eliminate their problem once and for all. What they didn't know was that Lieutenant Barron and half the police department were positioned around the house, waiting for my signal. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell like a civilized person. Dr. Weld answered, trying to look calm but failing miserably. Owen, I wasn't sure you'd actually come. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Marcus. Where's your wife? Your real wife, I mean. Angela appeared in the hallway behind him, her perfect hair disheveled and her designer clothes wrinkled. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. What do you want? She demanded. Justice, I said simply. But I'll settle for watching you two destroy each other. I pushed past them into the living room, where the argument had obviously been taking place. Papers were scattered across the coffee table. Bank statements, legal documents, what looked like escape plans. Running away, I asked, picking up a pair of airline tickets to the Cayman Islands. How romantic. A honeymoon funded by murder and theft. We can still work this out, Dr. Weld said desperately. I have money. We can pay you. With what? The medical board froze your assets yesterday, and Angela's accounts were emptied when the IRS got involved. You're both broke and wanted by the police, Angela snarled at her husband. I told you we should have killed him weeks ago instead of playing games with that stupid tracking device. You told me the device would work, Weld shot back. You said it was foolproof. It would have been if you hadn't been so squeamish about the dosage. I sat down in Weld's expensive leather chair and watched them tear each other apart. This is better than cable TV. Please continue. Shut up, Angela screamed at me. This is all your fault. You were supposed to die quietly and leave us alone. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm a software consultant. We're trained to find bugs in the system. You two were definitely bugs. The storm outside was getting worse, and the power flickered ominously. In the brief darkness, I saw Angela grab something from the mantelpiece, a letter opener that looked sharp enough to do real damage. You want to know what your problem is, Owen? She said, advancing toward me with the makeshift weapon. You never knew when to quit. Actually, my problem was trusting a sociopathic con artist. But I'm a quick learner. Dr. Weld tried to grab the letter opener from her. Angela, stop! You're making this worse. How can it get worse? We're already finished. She shoved him away and turned back to me. At least I can take you down with us. That was my cue. I activated the recording device in my pocket and stood up slowly. Go ahead, Angela. Kill me. Just like you killed the real Elena Grant. Just like you planned to kill my mother. Show everyone exactly what kind of monster you really are. You don't know anything about Elena Grant? I know you stole her identity after she died in that car accident. I know you've been using her social security number and credit history for 5 years. I know you're a parasite who feeds on other people's lives. She lunged at me with the letter opener, but I was ready. I grabbed her wrist and twisted until she dropped the weapon, then pushed her back toward the couch. And I know you're going to prison for the rest of your miserable life. The lights went out completely as the storm knocked out the power. In the darkness, I heard Dr. Weld trying to escape through the back door, but Rico's voice over the radio confirmed he'd been caught by the officers stationed outside. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting eerie shadows across the room. Angela was huddled on the couch, finally understanding that her game was over. The police are outside, I told her calmly. They've been listening to everything. Your confession about Elena Grant just sealed your fate. She looked up at me with hatred so pure it was almost admirable. I should have killed you the first day we met. Yeah, you probably should have. But you got greedy, and greedy people make mistakes. Your mistake was thinking I was weak enough to let you get away with it. The front door burst open, and Lieutenant Barron entered with a team of officers, their flashlights cutting through the gloom like searchlights. Owen Grant, Barron called out. Right here, Lieutenant. And I believe you'll find everything you need to charge these two with conspiracy to commit murder, identity theft, insurance fraud, and attempted poisoning. As they handcuffed Angela, she looked at me one last time. This isn't how it was supposed to end. No, I agreed. It was supposed to end with me dead and you rich. But life has a funny way of disappointing people who don't deserve to get what they want. Dr. Weld was brought in through the back door, soaking wet and babbling about his innocence. The two of them were loaded into separate police cars, their perfect crime finally coming apart at the seams. Rico appeared at my elbow, grinning from ear to ear. How do you feel? I watched the police cars disappear into the storm, taking my fake wife and her murderous husband away from my life forever. The rain was starting to let up, and I could see stars beginning to appear through the breaking clouds. I feel like a man who just got his life back, I said. 6 months later, Angela Morrison and Dr. Marcus Weld were both sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The real Elena Grant's family finally got closure about what had happened to their daughter. My mother recovered completely once Dr. Weld's treatments were stopped, and she donated half her fortune to victims' rights organizations. As for me, I learned that revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure justice is served with a side of poetic irony. Standing in the rain that night, watching my would-be killers get exactly what they deserved, I couldn't resist one final comment to Angela as she was pushed into the police car. Next time you want to put something inside someone, Angela, try sending flowers first.